twinkling. Well, no, they did a system.
Did they do a ballot?
They did a whole ballot system. I didn't enter because I thought the die-hard fans ought to get the priority, genuinely, because I think some of them, I think the ones who, the Arsenal fans, like all, but it will be quite something to have fans back in it. We all want to have that, obviously. Hopefully in a year's time, it's all just a distant memory.
Oh, that will be so weird, like a different planet. Still ahead on Good Morning Britain.
Are they really fed up with it, or is it all a smokescreen to hide from the off-screen sizzle?
Who better to ask than Ranveer and a former winner, Oria Duba, when we talk to them after 8 o'clock.
Well, after the break, we'll speak to Andy Murray, 3-time Sports Personality of the Year, Sir Andy, of course, and his mum, Judy. First, let's get the news, travel and weather.
See you in a moment. Competition time, and he has the details of how you could win £100,000. Good luck. Still to come, Wimbledon winner Sir Andy Murray and his mum.
Well, Sir Andy Murray is a Wimbledon champion, a US Open winner, an Olympic gold medalist, and also become the BBC Sports Personality of the Year a record 3 times.
The award has been won by men for the last 14 years, but now Andy's mum, Judy, is calling for a new prize just for women. So Sir Andy, and she was 15 years old when she left Britain to 7:38. President Trump has told his team to cooperate on a formal transition for Joe Biden to become the next US president.
Yes, the toys are slowly being put back in the pram. Trump has vowed to continue fighting his election defeat, which won't be successful. Joining us now.
Still to come on the programme, we're joined by the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps. 8 passengers arriving in England will soon be able to end their 2-week quarantine period by testing negative for COVID-19 after 5 days of self-isolation.
Well, under the government's test and release system, arrivals will need to pay for a private test. Transport Secretary.
Thank you very much indeed.
Interesting concessions there. Finally, we're hearing some admissions that, contrary to what the Health Secretary said in January to Parliament, we were not prepared.
I don't know why we took so long to accept that
we didn't have
masks
a testing system. We didn't have enough PPE.
Were effective.
We didn't have a plan for care homes. All these things are obvious. And it's interesting now, maybe post the exit of Dominic Cummings, this Svengali figure, we're now seeing ministers beginning to be more open and transparent about things we got wrong. I prefer that.
Yeah.
They might still get whacked for it, but actually I prefer some brutal honesty at this stage. We got that wrong, we got that wrong, we got that wrong, we're learning. I think the British public will be more receptive to that than to this kind of blind, we got it all right nonsense, which is palpably untrue. So interesting to hear Grant Shapps there, I think, make some admissions of errors that we made in our preparation for this kind of thing. We were not prepared for this. Let's just spell it out.
Despite the fact there had been an operation to get us prepared a couple of years before.
2016. And who was in charge of that? Jeremy Hunt, who's now emerging as the kind of expert in all this.
Although he says that what they thought they were preparing for was a flu pandemic, not a pandemic of this sort. But it's so interesting to hear
It's
Grant
interesting
Shapps
that the Asian countries
say that face masks are second nature there.
Well, the Asian countries
but why
got it
didn't we introduce
and
that
it's interesting
early
also,
on? Why didn't we get the testing in place?
Yeah, and also this thing about the totalitarian element of this, where people had to have the app. We should have done that. Sorry, but sometimes in a global pandemic, a bit of totalitarianism in regard to making people have an app that may save their life, that's not a bad thing, is it? Is it a bad thing for your government to say, rather than politely, or constantly, we were like, oh, please do it? No, lead. Say, look, it's going to save your life. Do the damn app. And those who squeal about it, get over yourselves. Honestly, it's pathetic.
I do think it's odd as well that the testing that will release you from isolation will come at significant cost. I mean, even £65 for an individual.
Fine for people like us.
But
what about if you're really
public sector worker who needs a break,
struggling for money? You've been working hard all year. You're desperate for a break, and you can't afford to spend £600-700 on these tests for your families. What about them?
Doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's one rule for those who can do it. Anyway, interesting. I mean, because the travel industry is dying. We've got to help it, like we do many industries right now. And you need clear guidance. Let people know. They can make their own decisions once you give them clear guidance. Anyway, let's get some clear guidance on the weather with Laura. Really?
Grant Shapps was the minister who they sent out after the Dominic Cummings scandal earlier on, and he was the one who had to take all the flack, and in fact stood by Dominic Cummings and said...
I think he revels in flack, Grant Shapps, but he's always unruffled, he's calm, and we need ministers like that. But you need predominantly people prepared to say, we got stuff wrong. I liked that part of that interview. I liked his honesty about pay. I liked his honesty about things they got wrong. Because these are still the people making decisions now. And if they're going to pretend black is white or white is black, you can't trust them. But if they admit black was black and white was white, you can trust them a bit more. I mean, it's about admitting things that were clearly wrong or wrong. There's a power in that, which they don't seem to have appreciated in the Cummings era.
Yeah.
But I do sense now he's gone, old Dastardly, that the Mutleys are, Dastardly and Mutley have left the building. So there's been a definite change in their willingness to accept they made mistakes.
Yeah.
Which they did. So you're actually admitting the bleeding obvious. Anyway, the Prime Minister is said to be close to agreeing a deal to ease coronavirus.